Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bridging Generations by Howard Snooks. This is Howard. Here is my guest, Omer Menashe.
Hi, Howard. Thanks for having me.
You bet. And I'm looking forward to talking to you. Now, I always start this with a dad joke, so I'm just going to do that.
Lay it on me.
Okay. Why couldn't the pony sing himself a lullaby?
Why?
Because he's a little horse.
My son is going to get a kick out of that.
All right.
And if he won't, I will.
All right. That's a good place to start. I got such a kick out of watching you and Jessica, your wife, and your two kids we went to the Chinese New Year, the year of the fire horse, the year of the fire horse. And so I ran into Omer and Jessica and their kids there. And it was just so much fun watching these guys being a family. Now, I know Omer from, we belong to the same club. So we have community lunches together. And I started eyeing him thinking, I bet he'd be a good candidate for this because two things. One is he's really smart. And number two, he's very funny.
And handsome.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't mention that.
I forgot that part. Okay.
But thank you. I appreciate it. Truly.
So, the heat's on, to be funny and stuff now. But anyway. So I'm going to turn it over to you to start talking a little bit about yourself, and I'll ask you questions. And if you want to ask me questions at any time, feel free to do it.
Okay. So a little bit about me. I am a family man now, married to Jessica, father to Adam, who's 6 years old, and Zoe, who is now 7.5 months old. Super sweet, super cute, starts standing up. Very exciting. Being a girl dad is a different experience than being a boy dad. Both awesome. I am a lifelong entrepreneur. I started my first company right out of college in Israel, and then sold that, and then started a marketing agency right after, and have since done many other endeavors and ventures. Right now, I'm part of a startup that does expense management, which is way more exciting than it sounds. And that's it. I live in Boulder.
Well, you own a gravel company too, don't you?
I have a venture studio that spins up companies. And my team, the marketing agency, now helps manage all of that part. But I do, they do all sorts of cool, different businesses, anything from e-com, DTC, to aggregates, to all sorts of home services. Very exciting stuff.
Yeah, well, it is cool. And it's fun to listen to you talk. I never was an entrepreneur. I was a PC at one point, which was before they had LLCs. I was a professional corporation, but that's as far as I went in terms of entrepreneurship. But it's fun to listen to you guys talk. And, I learned something about things at the club every day like that. Well, one of the things I thought was interesting about you is you're Israeli, you're an American, sort of.
My daughter is.
Yeah. And then I don't know if you have French citizenship or not.
Your
mother does. So there's like these, you're, influenced by three different cultures. And I'd say there are maybe some things that are alike, but they're probably pretty different.
Very different. Very different. Especially, I think, being Israeli and communicating the way I communicate. We're part of the same club, as you said. So obviously I have lunch with, and for the viewers and listeners who don't know, the community table is a table that can fit up to 12 people, I think, for lunch.
At least 12, yeah.
At least 12. And so we have these large lunches with people from all walks of life and all generations. And it has been insinuated to me that my method of communication can be abrasive at times, or too direct, we should say, being Israeli and all. And so there's a fundamental communication style difference between Americans, especially those living in Boulder, and Israelis, or Middle Easterners, I guess. But, and then the French side, obviously, I'm also married. Jessica is French, so I'm married to a French, wonderful lady. And that's a whole different type of communication style that even I have not yet fully gotten used to, despite my mother also coming from France. So yes, we're a good, fun mix of all sorts of cultures at home.
Now, how many languages do your children speak?
So
Or
my
Adam.
son Adam speaks. I only speak Hebrew to Adam, and my wife only speaks French to Adam.
Mhm.
And then English. Obviously, he goes to school. He lives here, so he speaks
Mhm.
English. That's his
Mhm.
preferred language at this point. So he speaks 3 languages fluently. If you ask him, he'll tell you he speaks 5. Spanish and Portuguese added to those initial 3. He can say a couple words in each. But yeah, he does speak 3 languages fluently right now.
So he has aspirations as well.
That's 100%. That's my son. He's, if nothing else, he's aspirational.
Well, he's a lot of things. He's really a cute little guy.
Yeah.
And Zoe is adorable. So, I just sort of loved watching this little scene because, I'm way up and I don't have grandchildren. I have children, but I don't have grandchildren. I don't think I'm going to have grandchildren. So it's sort of fun to see it. But you're what, 35?
40. I turned 40 this year.
You turned 40.
I was born in 85.
Okay. Okay, so you are a dyed-in-the-wool millennial then, aren't you?
So depending on who you ask or which website you read, I'm somewhere between millennial and Gen X. I think is the one before that.
Oh, I thought my daughter is just your age. She's
Okay.
40, and she always defined herself as a millennial.
I'll go by her then. I'll defer to her. If she says we're millennials, I'll be a millennial.
Well, so you mentioned the Israeli directness, I guess would be a way to call it. And is that difficult for people, do you think? Or like for Boulder?
It's mostly difficult for me because I think I'm communicating normally. But I have definitely, I'll put it this way. I've been traveling between Israel and the US prior to living here for, let's say, 4 years. And then I've been living here for about 5 years now. So it's been a while. And obviously I've spent a significant amount of time here, met a lot of different people. It did take me a little while to calibrate the way that I speak and the jokes that I make and my sense of humor to translate well for my American audience to an extent.
So you have to attenuate yourself a little? Is that kind of what it...
Yeah, you could say
That's
that.
interesting.
You could say that.
Huh.
It's just that, honestly, a lot of it is around my humor, which is more on the sarcastic side, I'm told. It doesn't always go over well with people from here, as well as it goes back home, I'd say.
Wow, maybe it's because I look kind of Jewish or something. But I think you're pretty funny.
I think so too. Tell everyone you know.
Well, okay, so that's interesting. Well, what else? Like, is it confusing to have these 3 cultural influences upon yourself? Or the language thing, I think, is interesting. Having a child who speaks 3 languages fluently and is on the way to 2 more.
So I recently had, I'm not going to call it an altercation, but a minor conflict with someone. I was with my son. My son is 6 years old. Being a boy, runs around like a tornado making a mess. And this person, this lady, she tells my son in front of me pretty not nicely to stop. And I didn't like that. I don't think an adult should speak to someone's child when his parents present. She can just speak to me. I obviously also thought he was making a mess, and I was also trying to control the situation. And in Hebrew, it's very common to understand who the person is. So you would ask, who are you? It sounds better in Hebrew, I should say, than in English.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I can see that.
Who are you?
Who are you?
Who are you again? She did not take it well at all. She got very, very offended. And that's just one example of the cultural clashes here. Now, obviously, my goal was not to offend, but to be completely transparent and honest, I was not happy about the situation either. So, but I would have definitely phrased it differently had I given it 2 seconds of thought before I spoke. But otherwise, I think, look, my son at this point, we moved here when he was 5 months old to the US. And so this is the only life he's ever known.
And you lived in Brooklyn first, right?
Yeah. We spent 5 years in Brooklyn. And we moved here last July, two Julys ago now. So in terms of the cultures, my son, the only culture he knows is this culture. My daughter was born here. She's the only American citizen in the family. And so she's obviously going to get, this is going to be her culture.
New age Boulder kid.
New age Boulder kids, exactly.
Yeah. Well, hey, I got a question about the lady. What generation was she?
That, like the name?
No, her generation. what was she, a baby boomer, or was she a generate? Was she?
Do you mean my wife?
No,
Or
no, the
Zoe?
lady who gave.
The lady.
Yeah.
I probably a Gen Xer, a little older than I am.
A little older.
Yeah.
This is given the theme of generation.
Yeah. No, I understand. It took me a while. I'll do better next time, I promise. So yeah, on cultures, I think that the biggest challenges are both honestly, it's harder for my wife than it is for me, because Israelis are very Americanized from a young age. The TV we watched is American TV. It's never dubbed. It's all subtitled in Hebrew. So we hear, the pronunciation, we hear the phrasing. In France, it's not like that. Everything is dubbed. They almost have an anti-American culture to an extent, right? They're the superpower, but we're also superpower in our history, and they're very proud people.
Yep.
And I think my wife has an even harder time adjusting to the American culture.
And she's raising the kids. She's staying at home raising the kids.
She is doing the most important and hardest job of all, which is raising, especially my son, but not my daughter.
I love. Well, it didn't show that he was such a difficult child when I saw.
You're being kind and you're being generous. So like you said, we met at the Fire Horse Festival, and my son was just running laps around the room, and my daughter was the chillest, cutest. She was sitting on me, smiling,
engaging them. I mean, she was starting.
Yeah, she was there, but she is super chill. She's a chill baby. She's diametrically opposite of how my son was from her age all the way to now.
Wow. Well, I mean, it's not like you're the only influence on your children. What they brought in, their protoplasm they brought in, has a definite influence on it.
Oh yeah.
I have two kids myself. I have a son who's 43 now and a daughter who's 40. And you're absolutely right. They came out totally different. Absolutely different.
And in terms of your children,
yeah,
you've mentioned you're not expecting grandchildren, right?
Right.
We're on a generational topic here on this podcast.
Yep.
In your generation, was that unheard of to come out and say, no kids for me, I'm good?
Well, it certainly was not a common thing to say, but it wasn't totally. I mean, my sister, who's 5 years younger than she said from the beginning, I don't want children. She never did have children. I think for my parents' generation, though, what are they called? The greatest generation. The greatest generation. The expectation was you're going to have children. And when I grew up, my grandparents were ranchers, and their parents were ranchers, and their parents were ranchers. And I knew my great-grandparents, and my grandparents lived on ranches, but my parents wanted to modernize their lives. And so they moved into town. This is the town of Durango, and purchased a business. And so we were the city cousins all the time, which always gets a laugh out.
It's a different world.
Yeah. But I mean, your question really was about having children, if it's the expectation. And certainly there was more expectation. And we tried to have a third child as well. It ended in a miscarriage, unfortunately. And we're never able to have another one. Yeah, that's it's a painful thing to go through. Definitely.
I think it was much more common for my generation, for sure. Honestly, I don't know, but I assume even more so for the generations that follow mine, to decide they don't want to be parents. I don't know what it's called in English, but there's a term for that in Hebrew.
What is it?
It's called al-horut. It's a non-parenting type thing. Very literal. And there are, Facebook groups, and there are subreddits and forums for people that come together around the subject of not wanting kids. But for me, it was never an option. I think from a very young age, but being a young adult, I knew I wanted kids, and I knew that I wanted what I do to mean something to them. So being a lifelong entrepreneur, I speak to Adam, my son, a lot about different business ideas and how things happen. I let him listen in on calls that I'm making just so and I asked him what he understood. And then we have a conversation about it. He's showing the entrepreneurial streak. So we've done 2 things recently. One is we set up a lemonade stand on Pearl Street.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to charge for anything on Pearl Street unless you have a permit. So instead, we set up the stand and it was completely free. And the sign said that you can donate or tip. And my 6-year-old made $70 in an hour. And then we ran out of lemonade. So we went home.
Dang. Well, so this is conscious. I mean, you're like taking every opportunity to show him that photo.
Absolutely. I've never been a good student at school.
Oh, you mentioned something about that.
Yeah, I've never been a good student. I never thought school was the end all be all. Being Jewish, I did become an attorney. So I went to law school, passed the bar. I am an Israeli attorney. But it's never something that I was passionate about. I didn't like school. I liked university better than I liked high school from the academic perspective, because at least you could choose what you wanted to learn. But I think the most important skill in life is to get people to act. And there's no better measurement of getting people to act than to part with their money. And so that's what entrepreneurship is all about. It's about convincing the person to click a button, make a purchase either online, take out their wallet, give you the money for something of greater perceived value, right? That's how sales work. And that's 100% something I'm trying to impart on my son and one day on my daughter when she's older enough it's a muscle. You have to train that muscle. You have to know. So we've done, other than the lemonade stand, he also made soap. So he got a kit for his birthday where he makes like soap. Yeah. And then we went door to door and we sold his soap for $1 a piece.
Wow.
And I think that's so important for kids to experience that for the first time. I'm a business owner. I've been a business owner my entire life. I know that some people just get a rash from thinking that they have to offer something for sale. Knocking on someone's door to get a no is anxiety inducing for a lot of people. I want my son to just for it to be a non-issue for him. I think it's one of the most important skills in life.
Wow. Well, I didn't make money for myself, but I used to sell magazine subscriptions door to door because I was in this high school band and we had this yearly trip that we would take. And so I sold magazine subscriptions door to door. And I was fine with it.
How was that experience?
Well, it was fine. And I won the prize of selling the most magazine subscriptions. Well, okay, so I want to, I mentioned that I thought you're pretty smart. And I knew you'd said you'd had trouble in school, but you have a conceptual framework that you use, which I think is a sophisticated one. And did you just develop that yourself? Who are your mentor? Who helped you with, developing how you think about entrepreneurship?
My grandfather is definitely the patriarch of the family.
Paternal or maternal?
Maternal. I never met my paternal grandfather. He passed away when my dad was 40 years old.
Oh, wow.
My grandfather maternal was Moroccan. He was the CEO of the Royal Public Company on the Moroccan exchange. So the company that belonged to the royal family, the king.
Oh, wow.
That there's a very common Jewish Moroccan saying to say, yeah, my grandfather worked with the king or knew the king. My grandfather really did work for the king, literally. And he then went on to being a very successful business person. He had dealings all over the world. And he lived in France while I lived in Israel. So I only saw him a couple times a year. But I think that's where my entrepreneurial spirit comes from. He hasn't really, it was never a priority for him to impart that knowledge on me. I have a cousin who lived in France, grew up in France, so they were a little closer, and I think he got a little bit more of that from my grandfather than I am. But still, that's the first example of entrepreneurship that I've seen in my life.
Now, is your cousin on the same track as you, or not the same job, but the same entrepreneurial track?
Less so. He ended up being in investment banking.
Interesting.
Yeah, around finance and
Interesting. Wow. So your grandfather, and he's still living,
No, he passed away a little while ago now.
but he was a real figure for it.
He was absolutely a real figure. It's funny because like I said, my grandfather lived in he's Moroccan. He then lived in France, and my entire mother's side also comes from France, and my wife is French. And so my father-in-law, who passed away 2 years ago, and my grandfather knew each other. They were actually partners in a newspaper. And the first thing that my father-in-law told me when we first met, so my wife and I started dating, and then I had the official dinner with meet the parent.
Sure.
Her mother passed away when she was young, so it's just her dad. And almost basically the first thing he told me is, your grandfather was an asshole, right? And he had already passed a couple of years back. I didn't really know what to respond to that.
You didn't know that, apparently.
I love my grandfather. He is my grandfather, but
Sure.
he was somewhat of a corporate raider. And so there was he left a lot of tension when he passed with other people. So he had that entire side of him as well.
What an introduction to the potential.
What a coincidence.
Well, a coincidence, and also taking advantage of this coincidence. Let's get him off his just a little bit here at this dinner.
I can't wait to be a grandfather and mess with my grandchildren and their spouses or partners. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Do you think you'll stay in the United States?
It's a great question. I don't know.
The world's open to you, isn't it? Like that's one thing about entrepreneurship, like you do, is the whole world is your
at this point. I have every passport, so from a technical perspective, the world is open to me, which is a nice position to be in. But if we're on the subject of generational things, as a parent, I think my responsibility is to offer the best possible opportunities for my children. Mm-hmm. The opportunities that I know. I'm not an artist, and I'm not a mathematician, and I'm not a physician. So I don't know where those things are best applied in the world. But I do know business. And there's no better place to live than in the US if you're trying to build anything commercial, anything business oriented. Yeah. And so at least from my perspective, this is the best. Living here would present the best opportunities to my children. Will I think that will I think that in 5 years, 10 years? I don't know. The US will never be my home. Israel's my home. I love my country. It has its challenges for sure. But at this point, being a father, being a family man, I have other responsibilities other than my immediate desire to be home. And everybody wants to go home, right? That's
yeah, everyone wants to go home. Well, so some Israelis have really strong accents. We know some of them.
Yep.
But you don't really have an accent. Maybe there's a tinge of it, but barely.
Some words.
Yeah.
I've put conscious effort into sounding like an American. Your run-of-the-mill default American that doesn't necessarily come from anywhere in particular in the US, because from a very young age, I had to sell to Americans. Mm-hmm. And in order to sell, you have to build trust. And trust is it's not even built, but it is very easily broken by people who are not like you. So people who are not like you, that don't look like you, that don't sound like you, that don't think like you, have to pass significantly larger hurdles to develop trust that, we're sitting here with our lovely producer. You two have this built-in trust that I don't have out of the box. So that's why I've started speaking like this. At this point, obviously, this is how I speak. But when I was younger, I had to sell to the US, I made meaningful efforts to practice and sound more American.
See, this is why I think you're smart.
Thank you.
You make these observations, because I would never have thought about an accent being off-putting to people. But when you say
because you won the lottery, you were born here. You don't have the problem that I had.
So do I sound like I have an accent? Do I have
No, you sound like a generic American. But to me, you all do. So
yeah. Boy, that is interesting. Well, I got another question for you. This is about education. Now, I'm the only member of my family that ever got a PhD, but my two sisters have master's degrees, and I have a couple of cousins who have bachelor's degrees, but not everybody went on to college. But I just assumed my children would go to college and they would get graduate degrees and maybe become scholars of some sort. I just assumed that would happen. Well, they did go to college. They graduated from college, but no, they have no interest in a graduate degree. And it's a different generation thing, I think. Like, graduate school does not carry the cachet for them that it did for me and from their mother, my children's mother. So I just wanted to ask you about that too. And I know you said you liked university better than you liked high school and stuff, but
Yeah, I think this also ties into the whole AI thing now, right?
yes, yes, it does.
But even pre-AI, I absolutely think college education, especially in the US, the way that you guys are doing it here, has lost its luster to an extent. I would not be sad if my son tells me, listen, Dad, I decided not to go to college. I'm going to do something else, literally anything else. I'm going to become a fisherman. I'm going to be a painter. I'm going to start a roofing company. It doesn't matter. I don't think that school or college, the way that it's made today or designed today, is provides the same value it used to. It used to open doors, right? You needed to go to college. Even if you learned absolutely nothing, you needed to have that college degree to advance in life and find a vocation that fulfills you.
Well, the connections that you make.
That's my next point.
Oh, sorry.
So the one thing that I think college is very important for, and that's what I got in my university experience. That's where I met my first partner, where I started my first business with.
A peer.
Back in Israel.
No, I mean a peer, someone your same age.
Oh, yeah, a peer.
Yeah.
He was in my class. And we started our first business together. That one got sold, and that launched me on my official entrepreneurship career, if you could call it that. But you absolutely need to be in a school or a framework where your peers are also of the same mindset. So I went to IDC in Israel. Mm-hmm. It used to be the only private university. Now it's an actual university. Many years later.
An actual.
So we don't really have the concept of private universities in Israel except that one school.
I see.
School is publicly funded and it's generally almost free, which is another thing I think is difficult here, right? Mm-hmm. You could go get a liberal arts degree, come out with $250,000 in debt, and have absolutely no way to pay that back because, there isn't that much demand for high-paying liberal arts jobs. And so at the end of the day, I think if you go to a framework, it could be a college, it could be some base camp, whatever it is, boot camp, sorry, where you meet people mm-hmm. who you can go and build things with, that makes it all worthwhile. Otherwise, I'm of the camp that formal education doesn't carry the weight that it used to. And with AI, again, I mean, you can learn anything you want now using AI, anything mm-hmm. you're passionate about.
Mm-hmm. Hallucinations and all.
I think it's getting a little better, but yes. Right. But also in 10 years, 20 years, you're not going to need half the professions that you study at school today, right? And it could be mostly white collar, lawyers, accountants. Mm-hmm. We're seeing these startups, sprout up now, where I just saw one yesterday. It's an end-to-end accounting platform, kind of like a startup, but uses AI heavily. Mm-hmm. It basically does your books. So if I pay $5,000 a year for someone to do my taxes, mm-hmm. I can do it for $50 and not have to speak to a human being who doesn't have time for me to give him a call when I have a question. The world is going to change. So assuming that education isn't going to change doesn't make sense.
I just had lunch with my son this last weekend, and he's 43, and he's in this job he's pretty bored with. It pays pretty well, he's doing okay financially, but he's going, God, I just hate this job. And then he goes,
I hope his boss doesn't listen to your podcast.
Oh God, I better keep it on the down. Well, he said, I've just decided now's the time for me to take a jump. And so he started to looking at businesses for sale. And he says, it's because of AI. My job is going to go because of AI. This is what he was telling me. Also, he hates the job. So now what is he looking at? A car wash? He's looking at a florist shop. He decided he had some criteria. He wanted to choose businesses where the owner was retiring rather than, a business that they were just selling, because he thought that, there's a better reason for them to leave than selling. But he's having so much fun. He's so excited about it. And I thought, well, I guess I didn't need to send you to the University of Denver.
It's called the Silver Wave, where all the baby boomers are retiring, and their kids don't want to take over their business, and so they try to sell it. And I think it's not dumb. It's very smart to focus on these businesses with the physical aspect, the car wash, the woodworking thing, whatever, anything that AI won't be able to do in the immediate future. Right.
Yeah, no, the whole, are there going to be therapists, or is AI going to take the place of therapists, is another interesting thing. However, and I don't know how this is going to turn out, but people think sometimes you go see a therapist to get advice, and an AI might be able to give you good advice, but most people don't really want to get advice from therapists. They want something else. And you have to kind of decide what that something else is. But mostly it's I want to be able to express myself and be myself. That's pretty much what it is. And so how do you help them do that? And can AI do that? I always thought maybe, a person, they would get all these observations from AI, judging by your, tone of voice and the choice of words and phrasing. I am predicting that you are dealing with the following conflict, and I could sort of see that happening. But then they're going, well, what am I going to do with that? So there may still be a place for therapists. We'll just have to see.
I think therapists specifically, a lot of the times people just want to be heard, and they want to be heard by a human. Otherwise they just write their thoughts, right?
Yep.
And so that is probably not going to be going away. If they want the problem solved, AI is great for that. If they just mentally need to offload their burden to someone, to a human, you'd pay $500 an hour for that.
So we'll see what the future holds.
Yeah.
Did you ever? There's this old television show. I think it must be 10 or 15 years ago in the United States, called In Treatment, but it was originally an Israeli television series.
Betipul.
So did you ever watch it?
I don't think I have, neither version, but it's a very famous TV show. I'm familiar with it.
Yeah. The thing I thought was funny was like the two lives, the therapist's life, which was a mess. And then,
because whose life isn't a mess?
Right.
Just because you're a therapist doesn't mean you're any different than the rest of us.
Exactly. And it's not like, the therapist's big mistake is to say, well, if I were you, I would do this, because that's bad.
Do they do that? I thought they're not allowed to tell you what to do. They're not allowed to make suggestions. They're allowed, or rather, they're not trained to make suggestions.
I have supervised many graduate students in my life, or people that, once you graduate, you still have to get supervision and stuff to get your license. And so I've supervised many people that way. I would say that's the biggest thing that they have to learn. I think it's because when you're just beginning, you want to appear smart and competent, and you want to have the client think that you know what you're doing. So they're going to tell you, here's what I think you should do. So you have to kind of train yourself out of doing so.
That's actually very Israeli. So when you go to an Israeli and you tell them you have a problem, anything, the response is usually, first of all, you're wrong. And here's what you should do.
Right.
So it's very similar.
Okay. So let's talk more specifically about relationships between generations. So you mentioned this Generation X lady or whatever, but I'm always interested both in these positive things like your grandfather, and also those things where you sort of had to fight a little bit, or sort of like establish yourself when there was someone maybe trying to harm you, or at least to put you down or do something. Do you have any examples like that?
So examples of other generations trying to assert themselves, are we talking about the older generations trying to assert themselves, or the younger generations?
Either one, because you're in that middle generation now.
Yeah. I think I don't know that I've witnessed a lot of specific generational conflict like that because of generational reasons.
Mhm.
I think, especially if we're talking about the world of entrepreneurship or business, I come from tech, right? And especially before the age of AI, let's say before this year where AI really
Right.
exponentially
Right.
blew up in terms of capabilities, you would always have these older folks who, when I was 25, 30, they would work at the companies. They were, let's say, old. They were 45, they were 50, right? Not really old, but geezers in tech terms.
Sure.
And they would be so scared to lose their job, because if you lose your job and you have to go find a job at 50 in tech back then, you might as well retire, right? That you're done.
Yeah.
So I think that in terms of the generational conflict, so to speak, that was a very big thing. How do we include the older folks in the industry? They were simply ejected out. And that's something that now that I'm old, I'm 40, so now I'm getting up there. That's something that occupies me probably more than it should.
Interesting.
What I'm going to do when I'm 65, 70, 75. I have no burning desire to retire. I think, speaking about my grandfather, when he stopped working, that was almost jumping off of a cliff in terms of his cognitive ability, his mood. He really deteriorated in 2-3 years, almost immediately.
Wow.
That having meaning and doing things and getting up with a purpose and a goal and a set of tasks every morning is what keeps you vital, right? And if you don't have that, then it's very, very easy to fall into this being this blob of a human being that just have the days blend together. You don't even know if it's Tuesday or Saturday. So that's how I keep myself engaged in an industry. For now, right now, it's easy for me. I'm in my prime. I know everything. I'm at the forefront of AI and tech and entrepreneurship and business. And I'm having the best years of my life, financially, business-like, and interest levels. But it's a bell curve. I'm gonna hit the peak, which I hope is going to be in a very long time, but it's going to happen. And then the decline is going to start. And how do I prepare for that?
So you're uneasy about that.
Very uneasy. Again, it occupies me more than it should.
Okay. Well, let's say let me paint a scenario for you. You become very, very, very successful in the next 10 years. And at age 50, you have more money than you could ever dream of ever needing, 10 times as much money. Well, let's say you're thinking about something new. Are you going to have to do something that requires making more money then in order to have that feeling that you need? Or are there other things you can do? Like you could do what I did, become a runway model.
I'll definitely take that into consideration. Okay. I'll let you know. But barring that option, look, the fact of the matter is that I don't need to work anymore. I work not for the money at this point. Sure, money is it's like score on a scoreboard at this point, right? We want more. It's how you validate your self-worth. And it doesn't matter if you have $5 million, $10 million, or $30 million, you always want more. But I've also, another phrase that I heard maybe 3 years ago is don't trade, I don't want to butcher it. Don't trade money you don't need for time you don't have.
Oh yeah, I like that.
And that's, again, I could sit from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. to work on all the things that I'm doing. But then where's family time? Where do I see my daughter? When do I see my son? One of the best things that happened to me during COVID. And so in March of 2020, we moved from Tel Aviv to New York. Not a great time to do it. Transatlantic move with a 5-month-old. But it was what it was. And it was a pretty horrible and miserable time. But the one silver lining is that everybody was stuck at home. So I saw my son grow from 5 months old to, say, 2 years old. And we were mostly stuck in the same tiny New York apartment. not a lot of fathers have seen their kids grow up at those formative and fun, honestly, years the way I did. So that's time that again, it was all in the same living room, my computer, my son, my wife, everything. Presented its own challenges, but I did really enjoy spending that much time with my son. And it's definitely something I'm trying to remind myself of almost every day now, to let go of work. It doesn't feel like work to me. That's the problem. I really enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy building. I enjoy doing.
See that? I know. I could tell that. And that's why I was thinking, well, no wonder he's uneasy. But maybe is there a path through that? You know?
I'm mostly worried that the world is going to get away from me, basically.
What do you mean?
I can see now when I speak to folks who are in their 60s even, so not old, 60s, they don't understand tech the way I understand, the way the younger generation understands it.
Yeah, don't. I can't. Even
I didn't want to point any fingers. I didn't want to point any fingers, Howard, but that's
no. No, I'm a good example.
So I need to make sure that I don't lose, because it's so easy. You miss out on a thing or on a process or on a trend, and you're behind, and catching up is hard, right? So that's kind of what I'm worried about. I need to be able to have these conversations at a very high level with the latest developments throughout my life. Otherwise, I'm going to be left behind.
Well, okay, so human beings have developmental stages. You know, everybody knows the early one, the oral, you know, that sort of stuff. But, you know, developmental stages occur later in life too. I'm in what's called the generative stage. You know, it's not like I have all the money in the world, but I'm perfectly content with what I have. I don't, you know, whatever I want to do, I can do, really. And so that whole thing, and keeping up with tech, I've given that part, I've given up. I don't even care. If I can get my television to work one of these days, you know,
You're happy.
I'm happy.
I do have a question about that, though.
Okay.
Have you ever been passionate about tech? Or was that just something that was around you?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I think that's also a big thing.
Well, so there's personality characteristics that are going to flavor your going through developmental stages. But I can imagine that kind of, I'm not interpreting this. I'm just saying there's a possibility that your goals are going to feel different when you get into another stage, when you get older. It's not going to be quite the same feeling that you have now, that you're worried that you're going to have, and that's going to be unmet.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Let me know. Yeah.
I'll come on. We'll do a follow-up.
All right. We'll do a follow-up 20 years from now. Okay, Omer. How did it go?
There's a TV show that you can find on YouTube. It's called, I think, 7 and Up or 7 Up. And it was filmed in the 60s. The first episode was filmed in the 60s. And it's basically a group of, I think, 20 kids in the UK. And they're all 6 years old. And then that same show happens every 7 years. So they film them again when they're in their teens. And then they film again when they're in their 20s. And then 30s, 40s. And, you know, they started in the 64, I think. I think the last episode was maybe 2012, 2013. So, like, it's a lifetime.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And speaking about generational things, I think the main lesson that they learn from this process is that who you are at 7 is pretty much the personality you're going to have at 63.
Let me think about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I was in the cat, what do they call it? Catbird seat? What do they say? I was sitting pretty when I was 7 years old. I was a teacher's pet. I had a great life when I was 7 years old, but my life is pretty great now. So, well, that's interesting, but still you go through you go through Erik Erikson's developmental stages.
You get taller.
You get shorter.
You get taller, and then you start getting shorter.
I used to be 5'11", I want you to know, but not anymore. Well, okay, we're kind of coming to the end here, Omer. We have a couple more minutes, but what were some things you wanted to cover? You know, you sent me such a nice outline of stuff. It was like way more than I knew we could cover, but still, I love it, you know.
So I really enjoyed this conversation. I thought we were going to talk about entrepreneurship versus the generations.
Hmm.
So I gave it some thought so that I could sound intelligent as I'm reading off what I memorized for this episode. And I think I was trying to think about the obviously generational differences is not something that I've put a lot of thought into prior to having the conversation with you to come on this show. And I wanted to make an observation around what it's like to be an entrepreneur in my, not age, but like my generation, what it was like for us versus what it seems like it is for the younger folks. And I think you know the names of the generations better than I do, right? But the Gen Zs and the Alphas and the Echoes and whatever. And I don't know a ton of entrepreneurs that are significantly younger than me. So most of the exposure I have to them is on social media. It's on X, it's on YouTube, it's on TikTok. And obviously this is selection bias, but because these are the people that I do see. I don't see the ones that don't do what I'm about to describe. But it feels like they're looking for leverage before they have traction.
Oh, you said, you mentioned that.
Whereas for us, because maybe social media, or at least the process of using social media was not the same, we first tried to get traction and then went for leverage. Now go on any X account that talks about, building in public and all these sweaty startups where they talk about starting trade companies. A lot of them are describing processes that they have not gone through for the social clout to then get the followers, get the following, and then build a business off of that following, which is definitely a way to do it. It's not the way that we're familiar with, I think. It's not the way that we used to do it or still do it.
Do you feel a sense of disapproval about it at all?
It's not about disapproval. I think if it works, it works. I suspect that it doesn't always work. I suspect that it's a bit of a show rather than, and let's be realistic. If you have a business that's working, that demands your attention, you probably don't have time to write 7 tweets a day and record 2 videos every other Monday. And so it's very, it's the whole guru industry online. They sell all sorts of courses. They sell this hustle mindset, which in itself has some merit, has some good points, but not more than that. And what I mostly don't connect with is how they peddle freedom. So the concept of freedom is something that I think is largely misunderstood for that group or within that mindset. They peddle freedom as this, do this and then have passive income and don't do anything and don't worry about anything.
Head to Ibiza.
Yeah, and just, they think of freedom as the concept of doing whatever you want or not doing anything at all. And I don't think that's real freedom, or at least not freedom that fulfills you as a human being. I think freedom that fulfills you as a human being is freedom that comes out of creation, of creating something that you can control, that you can grow, that maybe outlasts you to an extent.
Well, are you saying, like, you defined yourself as an entrepreneur? You definitely have. And are you saying these young whippersnappers are not defining themselves in that same way?
I think they're absolutely defining themselves as entrepreneurs. I think their definition of entrepreneurship and mine is slightly different.
Interesting. Well, I have one other story to tell you. It's about my dad. So my dad was born in 1921 and my mother in 1922. And they both grew up on these farms, ranches. They got married before the war, but then my dad went into the army, and he was wounded in the Battle of Remagen, which is one of the final battles in Germany, where a sniper hit him through the shoulder. So he was injured pretty badly, but he actually ended up, you could see the scar, but it never really impacted him. So anyway, he came home. My older sister was born already. Came home and they were looking for a job in Durango, and my dad couldn't find a job. So they were heading to Uravan, Colorado, where there is a uranium processing mine for atomic bombs. And he was there was always jobs available. So he's heading there. So he stopped at a gas station to buy gas. And he knew the guy that owned the gas station because that guy had one time, he was flying an airplane and had lost an engine and landed on top of Mount Baldy, which was this mountain on the ranch for my grandparents' ranch. So, they they asked my dad to, once they got back off the mountain, they had to bring an engine back up and put it on the airplane. So my dad, helped him, took him up to the mountain. So he knew him. So my dad sees the guy that owned the station. He says, "So you don't know any jobs for a guy around here?" He goes, "Yeah, I could use you here at the service station." So my dad started working at the service station. They ended up not moving. And then through that, he ended up owning a wholesale oil and gas company. So it was a very profitable business. But, that was the direction. He went from working at this gas station to buying a gas station and then taking over the wholesale oil company. And at age 62, and my mom was involved too, they were co-owners. So she was very involved in this too. Age 62, they said, "Well, we have enough money." And they talked gas and oil constantly, like their lives were stuck. But once it was over, they were done. It was just the funniest thing.
What did they do with it?
They ended up moving down to Arizona, playing golf,
No, what did they do with the company?
Oh, they sold it.
They sold it.
Yeah, they sold it.
So you come from a lineage of entrepreneurship.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Ranchers are entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's true.
Sure. But anyway, somehow they switched over from this. They devoted their lives to the business to all of a sudden, once they were done, they were done.
That is incomprehensible to me.
I
don't know how you can be done.
I know. It really shocked me too that they were that way. And I haven't left the therapy business completely. I do online life coaching here sometimes. So I do that sometimes.
So you're an entrepreneur too. See,
I like to keep myself involved in it. And the podcast is sort of like that. It's not like I'm treating people, that come in with depression and anxiety, but I'm interviewing people. So it's sort of the same.
And if they do have depression and anxiety, you're going to find out.
I'll ask AI. Hey, thank you so much, Omer. I really got a kick out of this.
I enjoyed this a lot. Thank you so much for having me, Howard.
But I knew I would. See, that's the thing. I could tell.
I'm not surprised myself.
All right. Very good. Thanks.